All right, David. So you went from CAPM to PMP in 10 days. How good do you feel right now, man?
It's it's still a surreal feeling, I can't believe it. People have told me like, nah, that can't be done. That's crazy, but I did it, So it feels surreal.
All right, dude. Well, let's talk about it. How the heck did you do it? Talk us through kind of step by step how you accomplished this thing, dude.
Uh, oh man, not for sure. I mean, the biggest thing is your program. I think the seven key flows really helped me out, and then the 8.0 inspector, and then the one view. I use that a lot.
Right.
Once I understood the processes, where the 49 processes go, the 8.0 inspector and the one view definitely helped to reinforce that in my head. At first I tried to study just for, memorize the 8.0s, but there's just too many. You just can't memorize it all. I mean, so having those two tools, the 8.0 inspector and one view, definitely helped.
That's awesome, dude. So I mean, you went through the accelerator and you did well. I mean, you weren't in it for obviously that long because you just like powered from CAPM straight to the PMP.
Right.
That's good. I mean, a lot of people talk about the accelerator, they're like, oh, I really like the videos and like all those things down
Mm-hmm.
there. You mentioned that and the what do you call it? Inno inspector and PM1 view. And then they also talk about like coaching calls and stuff in the community. Like, were any of those like super helpful for you as you kind of like went through this at an accelerated pace and stuff?
Yeah, so I only had one coaching call before. Well, that was actually I took the CAPM and then I got one coaching call. And actually, I wasn't supposed to take the PMP till the 30th of November, but with Thanksgiving coming up, and some stuff going on at home, I
Yeah.
kind of pushed up the timeline. Just lucky to be able to take it online. But what I like too is that the group chat,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter whether you know them or not. You just pose a question and they'll respond to you.
Nice.
That's I like that sense of community because it's kind of like like a high school from like kindergarten to high school, right? You got people who's coming in brand new, and then who's got people who's about to graduate to college, and by that I mean people who's been studying a lot longer than you and who can provide you guidance like quickly if you have a question. So it's I really like that community sense of community.
Yeah, that's kind of cool to point out, like that. There's always people at different levels. Like people
Right.
coming in, they're like, "Oh, I'm scared because like I got this yesterday. Someone said, "Oh, I'm scared because I don't want to miss anything on the test," or "Oh, in the little coaching calls or in the groups and stuff." And I'm like, "Hey, man, like just relax. Like there are people in there and they're super duper supportive." Did you find
Right.
that those people were like open to answering questions, or what was it like?
Yeah, I mean, people. I actually made a few friends, and actually, I we can talk about my lessons learned. What are the mistakes you
Yeah,
told
man.
me not to do, and I did the night before. But yeah, I mean, like you can always private chat there, and then there's always coaches and instructors on the group chat too.
That's
So I
cool.
mean, yeah, everybody's just really helpful because I think we get the sense that we're in this boat together. We're trying to pass the PMP, the deadline's coming up, and people I know people are just frantic,
Yeah.
but shoot, if I can do it in what 25 days, I mean anybody can.
You went from like nothing CAPM, then PMP in 25 days. That's pretty crazy. So
Right.
you said lessons learned. Like, what are some of those things that you look back and you go like, oh, this was good, this was bad. Like, what are your lessons learned, man?
Yeah, so the night before, I know I spoke with you and you're like,
Yeah.
what are you doing today? I'm like, oh no, I'm just gonna watch some TV and
Yeah,
chill.
that's what you said.
And I made the mistake that night about 6 p.m. I started like, you know what? Let me take like 20 mock tests, right? By 16, I know. I mean, it did good, but my brain was just so tired that
Yeah.
by 16 questions, I was tired and I couldn't sleep that night for whatever reason. I think your brain just keeps on going, so I didn't really get a good night's sleep. Um, so the next morning I was kind of groggy waking up, and but I think it's all well. But I think people just need to relax. People need to stop thinking like, oh, I can't miss a question. I mean,
Yeah.
um, because nobody's perfect. I don't know if anybody's gotten 200 out of 200 or
I
175 or
doubt
one.
it very seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, people just need to stop thinking that way. Just trust yourself. I know it's easy to say this now on on the other side, but because I was on the other end and I was like, man, I don't think I can do this. you know, I wasn't feeling nervous till like the night before. I think
Yeah.
that's why I started reviewing questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people just need to trust the program. Actually, I mean, you know, it's fine to do a light review the night before, but I don't recommend going through like a mock exam again. Like even 20 questions is too much.
Right.
It just adds more anxiety.
Yeah, just more. Yeah. And in all honesty, like we did talk like a day or two before, right? Like you were
Right.
like, "Hey man, I'm a
Yep.
little nervous. I don't know." And then you and I
Right.
jumped on a call. And what do you think was causing your nervousness?
Well, you know, like I mentioned, there was like I was talking to like two PMP folks. You know, like one of them's like, "Oh man, you know," because they were like, "Oh hey, when did you pass your CAPM?" You know, I was like, "Oh, you know, it was like about a week ago." And then they're like, "You're taking your PMP in 2 days?" I was like, and you know, one of them even says like, "Oh, you know, I failed my PMP twice," and then they're like, "Oh no, you're kind of crazy." So I mean that right there messed up with my head. But you know, I appreciate you calling me and just to reassure me. At the same time, you know, I after that day, I was like, man, you know, the fire that lit up in me was like, okay, I got to prove these people wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They say it can't be done. All right, let me show them. You know, that so that was like the motivation more than getting the PMP, right? Yeah, so I mean, I do appreciate, you know, you have a upbeat energy, always
Yeah.
taking care of us and very responsive, and that quick call, you know, you gave me is like, yeah, dude, just calm down and stuff. That really helped me out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's the thing I heard. I mean, I went in and looked in your system and stuff, looked at the results and kind of like browsed around before I got a call and like looked in the coaching thing to see what they said. And then like, yeah, I mean, just the way you were talking, I was like, I feel pretty good about how you're doing. And you know, how like a, you know, kind of competitive aspect to you. And so I think the biggest
Right,
thing for me, and a lot of this, you know, when I talk to students like you is like you said, like, calm, slow down, like just realize you're not going to be perfect, but you're going to do a lot better than a
right,
lot of these people that are out there just like pulling at random resources and
right.
like overthinking it and just not using their own brain in a logical way. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think you did good,
yeah.
dude. I know you haven't been in like the whole study thing, but reflecting on what these other people had said, no, you know, attack on them or anything, but people fail occasionally. But like when you look out maybe at different ways you could have pursued this or different ways that people are going at this, do you think there are ways that are wrong or that like hurt people's brains or like slow them down or kind of like lead them in bad directions? Do you have any insights into that?
Uh, I mean, everybody learns differently,
Sure.
you know, so when I found out about your program, I like that you have, you know, you have the flashcards and it's a visual. I'm a visual learner, so I did it
Yeah.
that way. When I listen to your podcast, I'm not able to gain as much because I guess I'm not an audio learner.
Yeah.
But you know, so the biggest thing is people just need to understand what their learning style is and go that way because you've provided it via video, flashcards, and podcast. So I mean, you've kind of like provided the whole gamut.
Yeah.
So once you understand that, then just pursue it that way. Just because, you know, because somebody recommended, oh, you know, did you know Scott has a podcast? I'm like, no, I listened to it and I didn't get anything. You know, I wasn't just able to comprehend because I'm more of a visual. And
Yeah.
yeah, so just you know, when you do your, you know, your YouTube or whatever, and then the book, the handout, and then the flashcards. I mean, you know, that was the main things that helped me out. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
I mean, the biggest thing is find out your learning style and just pursue it that way.
I think that's a
it works
really,
for
really
somebody else.
smart way to look at it. And yeah, like in the next next course that we're doing, we're really like ramping that up. So kind of like to emphasize that and make people appreciate because what their learning style is. I mean, my wife is not a podcast person. Like I was like, oh, you
Right.
should listen to these podcasts, or hey, you should listen to my podcast. Like, you know, like, hey, I have a
Right.
podcast. Like we have
Right.
150,000 views in like, you know, 6 months. Like maybe you should look at it once. And then she was like, yeah, I try to listen to it. I really, it just like sounds like noise to me. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. But yeah, some people's it just doesn't go in. Like you have to see
Right.
it or have to touch it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
super smart to like not beat your head against the wall and do those things. So I think that's
Yeah.
cool. Why at the beginning were you getting this PMP?
You know, just for job career progression, and it's something that I've been wanting to get for over 6 years, but just never have had the time to do it. You know, Being in the military, you get deployed, and actually I had just gone back from a COVID deployment in September, and I actually tried to study. I had like a book and a PMBOK, and we were working 14-hour days, and we didn't have time to study. And then I got back mid-September. I was like, okay, maybe I'll take in 2021 because I know the test is changing. And then you were like, nah, dude, you got time to take it. And I was like, okay, I don't know about that. So I mean, obviously I wasn't sure. I mean, because I usually take, I don't know, maybe like a year to study for anything. So and that was like 3 months, and I was on on the balance, going back and forth, and finally glad to find your program.
Yeah, that's it, dude. And talk about like the military side of it. Was it hard to relate to the PMP concepts, like coming from the military, or what helped?
Yeah, I mean, just like the learning style things. I mean, because I'm in healthcare, so we don't really do a lot of project management. But the biggest thing is you have to find examples that relate to your own field. And once you do that, the concepts, it's just going to get stuck in your head. Like I said, I mean, it's because if you're just going by an example that somebody else uses, it probably won't make sense to you, and you're like, why is this here? But just making things up, it's like, okay, once you see a patient, you put them in, and then so that's kind of like the initiating, and then go to identify stakeholders. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, you got to find innovative ways to make it stick in your head.
That totally makes sense. All right. Well, this is really awesome. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing. And like, it's pretty amazing, like how quickly you went through it. And I think you like stuck to it. You like believed in the process, and then you found those, like you took accountability from what, like, from my side, I see that you're like, hey, I'm going to make this work for me. I'm going to figure out what my learning style is. I'm going to lean into that. And, and then you actually, stayed positive, reached out, did all those things, and the results are what they are. So that's really good, dude. Like at the end of the day, there's probably guys out there, girls out there that are like you, maybe from the military or whatever, want to get it. And then they're just kind of like on the fence or don't know, or been, kind of swirling with all this information out there. If you had to advise those people, what would be your advice for them to get going and hit the goal like you did?
I mean, I mean, like I said, if for those service members, I mean, we've been taught to learn and train to adapt. And like I said, once you learn how to do it, I think, like I said, I was kind of hesitant at first too, because there's always a self-doubt, and I'm sure everybody does. But we've been trained to adapt, and like I said, just jump, just dive in, do the work. I mean, you have all the. I made the mistake of reading the PMBOK, and it's rough, like 600 pages and stuff, so when you did it in like less than like 7 hours or 11 hours.
Yeah, 4 hours.
Right. Okay. So I mean, but that being said, just because you have the program, the accountability is also on the individual who's sitting for the test. Like I said, I mean, you provided the tools, we have to implement it our own way to make sure that content actually sticks to your head. So for those folks who are hesitant, just dive in there and just do the hard work.
There you go. As simple as that, man. And like the thing that's kind of exciting now, I know we had talked about potentially having you as a coach. I mean, you can let me know off air or whatever, but we would love it. I think you could speak to certain like populations really well, and obviously have a great story and support there. The thing's exciting now is that, like, as we're recording this, we have like 30, 40 days, whatever, 40 days left, whatever it is.
Right.
There's a lot of people calling me like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. I'm like, David did it. David did it in 10 days, dude. Like it's
right.
Crazy, but possible. It can be done.
Well, I told actually one of the other students, because she called me up. She's like, hey, how did you do it and stuff? And I told them, I'm like, because she's panicking, right?
Yeah.
And
tell me her name afterwards. Tell me her name afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. So she's kind of panicking because the exam is going to change. I'm like, look, if you have that in your head, you're not going to be able to study 100% because that fear is just there. The way I told her is like, okay, think about it. What is the worst that can happen if you fail the PMP?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you just have to retake it. You have to pay like what, $400, and that's it, right? Nobody's gonna die, right? So once you get that fear out of your head, because that's what I did, because I was like, oh man, it was like, when I started with your program, it was like, I remember it was the October 23rd. on a
Mhm.
Friday. I'm like, man, there's no way I can get this done, and then I was like, okay, so I had to tell myself, I'm like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, I got to pay another fee. Okay, the exam, I'm not going to make it this year, and then the exam's going to change. Okay, I may have to do more agile, but that's the worst that can happen, right? So
Yeah.
it's nothing like earth shattering, but so just get that fear out of your mind, do the work, study, and just go in there, just relax. I mean, even during exam day, practice your breathing exercises because that really helps out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what, so look what you're doing, dude. You're already like coaching people already. And like, I think so too many I see out there in the internet machine and uh, like all the focus is toward like ittos and memorize and write down and data dump and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I disagree wholeheartedly with the concepts, but you guys are just pitching like, or telling like, that's the way to do it. And I was like, there's more to passing quickly, like, and
Right.
efficiently and actually learning and becoming a better project manager. It's more than like, you first have to study the concepts entirely different than they say, but then there's like the mental and like self side of it to like you said, breathing exercises. Like that's
Right.
not like cheesy stuff. It's like actually like calming your body down, calming your mind down, focusing, letting like your actual like genius come through instead of letting all these fears take over and,
Right.
put a wall in front of you. So yeah, I think that's some of
Yeah.
the benefit of the coaches and stuff to like get people to think that way. So,
And I think most people too. I mean, taking the mock exam also helps with the stamina in taking it. And
true.
like I told people, like I think I told you when I took my CAPM, I finished the exam, the 3-hour exam in like under 90 minutes, and then I finished the PM. I finished the PMP in like less than under 3 hours. And I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I didn't let the clock run me. Like I didn't even look at the clock once until like it was break time, because the moment you look at it, it's like, oh man, because if you look at it and you have like 2 hours left, let's say you have like 100 questions, you start thinking of like, you start doing calculation, right? Okay, I got to do a minute, and a half or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you just read the question, just tackle it on. Some of the strategies I did too was that even if there's any, because I had like a few calculations and one that I had to draw a network diagram. So I flagged it right away. I didn't even tackle it till like the second pass because I knew it was going to take some time. Yeah. But when I review it the second time, it was actually a quick calculation. So, but I didn't want that to kind of hamper me, because I know if I didn't, with the panic, you calculate, and if you don't get the answer, you're kind of like, okay, what am I doing wrong?
Yep.
So I was like, I just flagged it. I just moved on, do the theory stuff, and then just loop back the second time around.
That's awesome, dude. I mean, the fact that you said like, don't let the clock run you, like you run the clock, or you just kind of like whatever. But like and I agree 100%. Same thing is like, don't let the questions run you, all these things. So it's like, you can get so worried about like being perfect, or like, oh, what are all these stressors in the question, or the stressors with the clock, like watching every second, like that takes time, effort, and takes away your mental, energies. So I think that's genius, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like you provided the tips. Read the last part. What is the question asking, and then read it back, and that actually helped me out a lot too. Mm-hmm. Because you kind of have an idea of what the question is going to go like towards, right?
Yeah.
And then so you're asking, okay, what should the project manager do next? So you have to get ready. Like, okay, they must be in some phase, and and even like you said, just reviewing the 4 questions, you can like almost eliminate 2 like right away.
Yeah.
So
and there's all those little tricks that or not tricks, whatever, but like ways to look at A versus B, and like you're like stuck, you're like, oh, and people just like circle around and like, I don't know. And then the number one the comment that I get all the time is, I always choose the wrong one. And I'm like, wow, think about what you just said. Like, first of all, you probably don't always do it. Like a monkey could flip a coin and get 50% of them right. But like there's different lenses that they could look at. And I think the more and more you go through it, you can look at it and like, well, let me think about this. Let me think about it this way. And then you can get to like 70 or 80% of like the right picks. And at that point, you're never going to be 100% in any life thing. So
yeah, I think when I started with you, I don't know if you remember our first call, I was like, yeah, I can get it down to 50-50. And I was always choosing the wrong one. So I was going to go with the theory, okay, do the opposite. And you're like, don't do that.
So, I mean, that's a strategy. I don't know. It might work. It'd be better to figure out what's making you pick that one. And then let's change that logic. But I like the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. You've given me a lot of ideas for podcasts. So that's cool. Like a learning style thing, the fear thing, the clock thing, the thing you just said. So picking the opposite one, different strategy for that. Good. Well, David, I really appreciate it, man. And thank you for taking time this morning. You did an amazing job. And I think you taught a lot of people good stuff. So I'm excited to keep talking to you. And if there's anything you need, just let me know.